If you're working with SSH terminal entries in Remote Desktop Manager, you've probably seen the Advanced tab under the Terminal tab and wondered what some of these options might do. Let's walk through them and see how they can help streamline your workflow. So we're not necessarily going to see all of these features in action as there are quite a few to get through. However, I will be defining and explaining each of them. Firstly, we have our answer back setting. And this lets you define a custom response that's automatically sent when the server sends an ENQ request. So here we're able to add whatever message it is we'd like so that when an ENQ request is sent, we would automatically get the custom response that we've set here. Next, if you're the kind of person who likes to keep an eye on resource usage, enabling remote monitoring is a must. So right now we have our enable remote monitoring set to default. If we set it to yes, then it'll definitely work for this particular entry. I would look into the file settings to see what your default is in case for any reason it's set to no. Because if it is set to default and in the file settings it's set to no, then it won't work for any of the entries set to default. So if we set it to yes, we'll see that the interval here is at 1 second. And so these two features are actually linked. This enables me to monitor the resource usage. And the interval, the amount of seconds, will allow me to determine how many seconds have to pass before I get an update on my resource usage. So if I set it to 1 second, then every second I'll get an update. If I set it to 2, then every 2 seconds I'll get an update, and so on. Next, we have the remote command option, which can be used to specify a command to start a shell other than the default one. What this means is that as soon as the remote connection is launched and the SSH terminal is turned on, this remote command will immediately be sent. So it allows you to, instead of having the default command be sent in, instead you get a remote command sent in, which is determined here in your remote command field. If you've ever heard a little ding sound while working in the terminal, that's the bell character. With bell behavior, you can choose how RDM reacts to that bell behavior. So whether you want RDM to ignore it, show a visual alert, or play a sound, it's totally up to you what happens. But these are the options we have. We can also have it change the tab color. Next up, we have enable compression. If you're ever connecting to the SSH over a slower network, or you just want better performance, then enabling the compression can speed things up by reducing the size of data that needs to be transferred. So if we set it to yes, then it's almost guaranteed that it'll go faster. Next, we have our SFTP settings. Now, for those of you who don't know, the SSH terminal can be opened as an SFTP. So for the sake of showing you, let me go here. And if I open with parameters, I can open embedded SFTP. So these settings that we just looked at in the properties, in order to use them, you need to open it as an SFTP. Now we're going to go back into the properties and see exactly what we can do within the entry. So we're back in the SFTP settings, and the first option we have is automatically open the file transfer tab, which can be enabled to automatically open the file transfer tab as soon as the terminal opens. And if you want to keep it out of the way first, there's also the option to start it minimized instead. You'll notice that show files in tree view is immediately by default checked. And if you want to have that structure within your file transfer window, then this is highly recommended to keep enabled. Otherwise, if you're someone who would rather not have that clear structure as a file tree view, then instead you can disable it and you won't have that. Next, we have our show hidden files option, which allows us to see all of the hidden files within our file structure, such as .files or config files, for example. If you're someone who likes to keep logs, then the log to file option is essential to open. Once you enable it, you will have to pick a file path in order to have the file actually be created. And if you'd like to create a new one, then you can simply name it. So for example, I can name mine logs, and the log file will be a .log or .txt file. The verbose feature will allow you to set the verbose level in order to set how detailed you want the logs in your file to be. When it comes to navigation in the File Transfer tab, you can define a home directory that acts as your root view, or if you have a specific folder that you'd like, then you can set it as your starting location. Lastly, if you're using Zmodem to transfer files from a remote server, make sure to specify the downloadable directory. So this is where incoming files will be saved on your local machine, making it easy to find them later. So once I click here, I'm able to select where I'd like those files to be saved. So that's a quick look at all of the terminal advanced settings in Remote Desktop Manager for SSH terminal entries. Whether you're customizing your shell, optimizing file transfers, or logging everything for later, these options give you a ton of flexibility to shape the session to your needs. If you'd like to know more, feel free to go to our knowledge base and documentation articles.